Então, cá estamos mais uma vez para mais uma conversa gravada. Eu já tenho aqui na sala de espera o Remco, portanto eu não posso demorar muito a deixá-lo entrar. Vou só dar a introdução em português. The rest of the movie, meaning vlog, will be in English. So don't worry, you'll get everything if you're following in English. This is just like the general introduction in Portuguese. O Remco mora em Hirado, eu penso que ele ainda mora em Hirado, vamos ver, vamos falar com ele. Da última vez que estive em Hirado, ele estava a morar lá. Ele é holandês, ele vive no Japão há vários anos e ele também trabalha com esta coisa da revitalização de zonas rurais do Japão, património antigo, portanto casas antigas recuperadas e rotas turísticas de conteúdo histórico, patrimonial, em Kyushu, particularmente em Kyushu, e também Arita e as residências artísticas, etc. Então, vamos ver como é que ele está, como é que está a vida dele. Já não vejo desde 2017. 2017 foi a última vez que estive com ele. Now I'm gonna accept him, admit, that's it. Let's see if he goes online. Hello there.
Hi there. Sorry.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Can you set the camera on?
Yeah, sure. Wait 1 second.
Oh, you're at your lovely house.
I'm not actually.
No, it looks like it.
Yeah. It's I'm in Arita.
Arita. Then
Arita.
maybe you when you told me you were in Arita, I immediately thought about the Pimenta program.
Yeah.
What you're working on?
Slightly different, but same kind of thing. It's artist in residency. Mm-hmm. Just like Pimenta was running in Arita. Mm-hmm. And but it's run by the government, so it's through Saga Prefecture. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we mainly work with Dutch institutions, and they send designers and artists over.
It looks like a great program.
Yeah. It's they come for 3 months, and we get really we get really nice, good designers, and it's I think it's one of the more, how do you say, well-run artist in residencies in terms of kind of output. Mm-hmm. Like the work they can achieve. Yeah. So.
Yeah, 3 months is a fair amount of time for them to actually produce something that reflects the time they spent in Arita.
Right. Yeah. And the good thing is I think the special thing about the program is that we match them with local potters. So mm-hmm. if they want to produce something that's make it into an actual product to be sold on the market, then we match them with potters and possibly also with wholesalers. Mm-hmm. So then they work together with a company and they can develop products and things like that. So it's also, it doesn't have to be like that, but they have the option to also give it kind of a commercial kind of follow-up. Mm-hmm. So that's totally up to the design or the art that that person is making, but they have the possibility to kind of put it out in the market,
and you get the chance to be in that place, which is awesome. I also love Arita. Like in the middle of the mountains, so peaceful.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I live in the old district, so I was very lucky with the house I'm renting here. So that was just more coincidence. That guy who worked on or was the advisor for my house, mm-hmm. he is an architect from Arita. And so when I had my job here, he said, "Oh, I know a nice place, and I'll he introduced me to the owner and things like that. So yeah.
And your house renovation, how is it? I mean, it's still ongoing, right?
Yeah. It's not moving. It's not moving anywhere at the moment, but because I'm working, so it's impossible to also renovate whilst doing a job, especially now when I'm in Arita. I'm only back in the weekends, so I just put that on hold for a few years. Yeah.
And it's such a big house. It's such a big project. You really went heads on into that thing.
It's that's the thing. Like, you can't just spend like a few days on just one part of the house, because if you're gonna do it, then you have to spend at least like a month doing just one thing, because it's all like such a big skill. So that's the downside, but at least I have some good space to work with. So
yeah, you can pinpoint that in the future, and in your mind set it up that I will achieve that, I will do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to have it's nice to have a overall goal, kind of, to work towards something. So yeah, that's the thing. As I need to be able to quit my job and just work on the house full time. So as long as I'm on a work visa, I can't do that. So I really need to have like permanent residency or something to be able to quit my job and still be able to stay in Japan. So
I thought you already have that because of how many years have you been in Japan? How many years?
12.
Yeah, 12.
No, I applied, but they refused me. So
What?
yeah.
The criteria is so weird. It's so weird because even if someone is really involved in the work they're doing and really integrated in society, sometimes they get refused. It's so arbitrary.
Yeah, it's really just more like it's with more technical details, but basically they didn't like me freelancing. Just a kind of
Safe enough.
I guess it's just the instabilities of not having a secured income that they didn't like. So then to them you're kind of like a liability, I guess, or whatever. So I didn't put it through, because the people in Nagasaki, they phoned me up and they said, we really want you to succeed, and we think that with this situation, it's not there's a reasonable chance I will get denied. So they said, please, if just take it down for now, and then once you have a stable job again, then it's better to apply then. So now I'm in the process of applying again, because I have my job here now, and so.
And how are things in Japan related to the current situation? How are you feeling? How's everyone?
I think I think that's the good thing about living in the countryside, is that
Great.
We have so much space here, and social distancing is not very hard to do, because there's just not that many people around. And I think the overall feeling was the approach was quite relaxed. So I think there's if you look at it never really kind of went out of control, because I think the way Japanese society works, it could have potentially been a disaster, but I think just because everyone follows the rules quite well, and people are just very considerate of other people. Hygienic standards are very high, and so this kind of explosion of cases that you saw in Europe never really happened in Japan. So even though there was a point in Tokyo in mid-April that it kind of seemed to be going that direction, but as soon as they put the measure or the kind of emergency situation out, I think that was it would they got it under control quite quickly. So
the location definitely helps, being in the countryside.
Yeah, for sure. So it never really got here. So I think we had one cluster just in the town next to Arita, in a kind of a club, like night bar, like a bar, and like I think 10 people or something got the virus. But then that was it. Like there was no spread of the virus after that. And it is just so much space here that definitely.
And working with artistic residencies and being sort of in the middle of the whole thing about tourism and cultural heritage management, how do you feel about the impact it was in Japan? Because no one's traveling anymore, no one's going anywhere. If they had plans, everything was canceled. So
right.
So
in that sense, it has affected everywhere really badly, even here in the countryside, because if you work in the travel industry, you're basically out of a job. I think a lot of the restaurants here are okay because most of their customer base are the locals rather than tourists, but tourist facilities are they're really struggling. So in that sense, we're affected just as badly as the big cities. And I'm not sure when we will see the kind of the travel industry picking up again, because the domestic market is just starting up again. But a lot of people are still hesitant to travel, and Japan is such a big, like high. The population is how to say, like a high age.
Yeah.
So a lot of the travelers in the domestic market are older people. So and those are the ones that don't want to travel at the moment. So also the domestic travel market is quite badly affected, and I think that will stay a little like this for a while. So, and Japan is also an island country, so it's very easy for them to kind of close the borders. If you kind of shut down the airports, basically that's it.
The port or the airport,
yeah. So we'll see what the government does. It's kind of hard to predict, but I think in the past they've shown to be quite restrictive in that sense. So I think the international travel market will be badly affected for the forthcoming future, I think.
I've seen so far, because what I've been doing for the last 2 years since you saw me last time, I've been doing is I've been turning more into the consultant activity towards creating programs for cultural immersion and cultural heritage routes in Japan. So what I've been noticing recently, because of all this crisis, is that Japan has pretty much closed their borders, so you can't get past immigration, when eventually, even if the traveling is possible technically with planes landing on airports, even if that happens, there are measures in place meaning that you can't get in Japan. So unless they lift that ban, it's technically impossible to travel. And also I noticed that most countries are leaning toward saving the internal economy first, domestic economy first. So has people create some confidence and create some idea of, I want to travel, they want to get their own citizens traveling inside the country first.
Right. Yeah.
So the economy keeps moving, but inside the country. So I guess that will also be the plan of Japan. Like first,
Yeah.
first
And I think,
internal tourism.
yeah, and I think if they open the borders again, I think first they'll start probably with like a quarantine period that you have to isolate yourself for 2 weeks or something like this. So yeah, I think the focus
Maybe
will
only
definitely.
next year.
Right?
Maybe next year.
Yeah. Hopefully as soon as possible, but yeah, who knows? Also for us as the artist in residency, where of course we're dependent on foreign artists and designers to come here and work in Arita, and also of course for us, for the program, it means that we cannot do anything at the moment. So we just kind of have to see and see how it unfolds. But we're already estimating that they'll put in the quarantine measures for 2 weeks. So we're extending our program with 2 weeks just to allow for this kind of quarantine period, and just kind of have a flexible approach that we can receive people as soon as the restrictions are lifted. That's the only thing we can do. So and we had some promotion events in Europe planned, the Dutch Design Week and a big exhibition at a museum, but we basically canceled all those plans, and we're now kind of, because it's the 5th year anniversary of the program this year, so we're all shifting to online now. So it'll just be a movie and a book that we'll be publishing, but no exhibition or anything. So
can you later give me the links so I can put the links on the description of the video and people can follow and watch the video and access information about that?
Sure, yeah, I can put the link of the residency. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then people go on the description of the video and they can follow that up.
Okay, yeah. Sure, yeah.
So I've been trying to create programs for people who want to discover Japan and kind of the more authentic side of Japan. And of course, I usually put Hirado and Arita and some place in Nagasaki Prefecture in the program because that's what I know the best, actually. And that's what I want to share with people. But everyone has a slightly different set of opinion and a slightly different experience. So in your own experience, and also you've lived there, which is something that I never did permanently. I went on and off several times, but not living there all the time like you did. So in your opinion, what are like the highlights of that area of Japan, mainly Nagasaki Prefecture, but also Kyushu, that you feel like are not so famous or people don't really know about, but you wish they did, you wish they visited?
I think for me, 3 aspects with Nagasaki and this part of Saga Prefecture, Arita area as well is, I think one of the unique aspects here is the history of interaction with the West. So Japan has a 450 year kind of history with of exchange interaction with the West, and a lot of that took place here in this area, and they still have this a lot of the remnants of that. So in Arita, you can see the porcelain that was, the whole industry was basically set up to sell to Europe through the Dutch trade, or the sites in Dejima in Nagasaki, where you can see where it was exported. Same in Hirado also. You have a lot of beautiful churches and it's you can see both aspects of Japanese culture in the churches. You know, used to be with tatami mats and this kind of thing. You still have to take off your shoes, and so it's kind of like a nice kind of mix between these kind of two worlds. You know, there's something distinctly Japanese about it, but also kind of relates to our own history. So I think this is for sure one of the unique aspects, and that you can still feel this history and experience it. And I think for Kyushu in general as a whole is that it was the area of Japan where people first crossed into Japan. So it has a lot of ancient history as well. And then when you really talk about ancient history, it's more often related to the Shinto religion. So there's a lot of really nice kind of myths and kind of stories related to Shinto history that you can find in Kyushu in particular. And I think that's also a bit of an underrated or not so well known aspect of the Kyushu area.
Even for Japanese people.
Yes, yeah, for sure, yeah. And then for me, the third was just the natural beauty. I think, but
right.
I think Japan is just such a beautiful country that wherever you go, you'll find natural beauty. But it's just too nice to kind of not mention it again. Yeah. So just the whole range, because Kyushu is not so big, you know, it's the size of Holland, but the Nagasaki area with all the little bays and the islands and the coastline, the views you have, it's amazing. And then you go to Aso region where you have this, you know, the biggest volcano caldera in the world, and the landscape is just so vast, you know, it's so wide, as it's really rare in Japan actually to have this kind of like wide open landscape. And so you have the kind of big contrast in such a small area as well. And yeah, I think no one can come to this area and not be kind of impressed or enjoy kind of like the natural scenery here. Yeah. Even in a big city as Fukuoka, surrounded by the sea, you have the beaches right there and the mountains around it. You can immediately already feel this kind of connection with nature, much more than a city, say Osaka or Tokyo or Yokohama.
Yeah, sure. Even in Fukuoka, in half an hour, you're in Daisafu Temple.
yeah. Or take the other way to Itoshima, where you have beautiful beaches, and you know you're just 20-30 minutes.
Has you touched the topic about beach culture and surf and water sports in general? That's another thing that I guess it's underrated in Kyushu. And people don't generally think about Japan as a summer destination. They don't think about Japan about the beach or stand-up paddle or anything like that. But that's actually something that is being developed as we speak, and greatly, and even more developed. The beach resorts, the stand-up paddle, and other sea activities, water sports, but kind of light. It's not like you need to be very sporty or a professional in order to enjoy them. I guess that's something that they have been developing, especially in Kyushu. And most people don't really know about that, and they don't know if they can actually enjoy beach season also in Japan. And in a very specific Japanese way, that's for sure. But what do you have to talk about it? Because you did surf or something like that, didn't you?
I used to do triathlon, so it includes swimming. So I swim a lot, and of course I live on an island. So in Hirado we have some very nice beaches. So beach season is definitely part of kind of the yearly kind of schedule. I think the beach season beach life is never really stressed so much because it's just short period in Japan, from the Day of the Sea, which is like the third Monday in July, to Obon, which is the 13th to 15th of August. So you have like 1 month of official beach season, which is very short. But for European sense, I would say that spring and autumn are very nice
Yeah, sure.
season
They are the
to
favorites.
visit the beach, and they're open. You can easily go and swim and enjoy yourself. But it's just something that the local people don't really do because of the sea temperature in the spring, and then in autumn they say, oh, there's jellyfish or so. Yeah, and I think so a lot of the facilities are concentrated in this very short period of the 1 month like summer beach season. But I think now we see that a lot of them are kind of, because in Japan the August is, or the summer is not the main traveling season, right? It's spring and autumn are high season. So in Europe, summer would be high season, but here it's actually low season. So yeah, you kind of see people now also starting up like these activities also a little bit in spring and autumn. And also they're finally kind of, I think, looking towards catering for foreign travelers.
Yeah, because they want to travel in the summer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of the things were activities were just based for Japanese tourists. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I think that's slightly like changing a little bit by bit. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's some really nice diving in the Goto Islands.
Yeah.
Nagasaki. Yeah, yeah. Have you ever tried it?
Yeah, I've been to Goto Islands 3 times already, and I've been targeting, of course, the whole Christian route in Goto Islands. But in the meantime, I've also discovered that is pretty much paradise over there.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
The animals are not afraid of you because they don't really interact with people anymore, so they're like just curious, and everything is so beautiful. And the fact that it's pretty much managed as a natural park, so the cars are electric, you have electric bikes too if you want to, you have camping sites instead of resorts, so you wouldn't damage the environment. So that sort of developed. I'm kind of pleased that a lot of those places are being developed with a environmental issue in mind.
Right. Yeah.
They need tourism in order to develop their local economies, because, as you said, most of the permanent residents are elderly, old Japanese people. I guess there's a new trend in terms of some younger 30, early 40s to move back from the cities to the countryside and develop projects more related to cultural and heritage and design and arts and stuff like that. But mostly they still are a very elderly senior society, and they kind of need the input, the investment of the foreign tourists. But I'm glad they're not doing that in a rush. They're doing that thinking about what are the consequences. How could we develop this without ruining what we have that is really good? And I think they're doing that pretty much everywhere in Kyushu. I'm really glad about that. And
yeah, that's the good thing with kind of a slow increase in tourism, and not kind of like an explosion of tourist like visitor numbers. I think one thing that we'll probably see after the coronavirus crisis is that even more people in like late 20s to maybe say early 40s, many people in the 30s will move to the countryside away from the big cities. We saw that really happening after the 2011 earthquake in the east of Japan, and then a lot of people moved away from Tokyo or other big cities. And I think we'll see another kind of wave after maybe in a year or two. Even after 2011, it wasn't like an sudden exodus. It was kind of a slow process that really people took the time to kind of look at their life and, you know, kind of rethink where they want their children to grow up and what kind of work lifestyle they want to have. And yeah, I think we'll see more of that. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely in Japan, the 2011 earthquake and tsunami had an impact in rushing things out and setting a room for people to think about it. Like, oh, this happened, and it's more than just a life decision. It's a context.
Right.
But yeah. I feel like it's happening in Europe too. Like I'm in that I'm in that age. I'm 34, and I moved back to a small city too, coming from the capital to a very smaller city than the capital. And even in this city, I choose to live in the outskirts, and my house just face a forest. It's like it's mandatory for me not to face urban area. And I guess there are more and more people, you know, making choices like growing your own vegetables and living in a place where you're not swammed down in the middle of the confusion. I guess it's something that people in their late 20s, as you said, early 40s, kind of choose their life differently. We're not that fascinated about the Big Apple.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of the young people in Japan still, they want to go to the big city, and yes, they want to. Of course, it's also where education is concentrated at. So it's logical that, you know, young people move to the big city first, and then, you know, they have their fun and whatever. And then, you know, a lot of people, when they get in their 30s, they start getting children, and they really more think about, you know, life after just having fun and you know, just you know, enjoying yourself. And then the difference between the big city and the countryside in Japan is so huge.
Yeah.
And the cultural differences are also very big, that it becomes quite tempting for a lot of people to kind of completely change their lives. I mean, the house that I'm in at the moment is probably you know, maybe half the price of what you would pay for a like 1-room bedroom apartment in Tokyo, right?
And it looks like a Ryokan.
Yeah. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rooms. Yeah, 7 rooms, and yeah, I mean, it's just, you can't really compare one with the other. You know, it's a completely different world. So a lot of people here really just kind of like pack up and go. I think in Holland, a lot of people, they still kind of trying to balance, like live in the countryside but work in the big city. And you see that in Japan also a little bit in Fukuoka, and a lot of people trying to move to the outskirts. But you also see a movement of just completely kind of changing your lifestyle and really just kind of moving really far out, because Hirado, Arita, it's really too far to kind of, you know, commute to the big city.
It requires to completely reshape your life plan. It's like what you do for a living changes, how you live changes. I feel like in Japan is more like you feel like you moved in your timeline. It's like you're not in 21st century anymore. I feel like that with the thing about waking up with the bell ringing and ending work or going home with the song playing out loud. And even the architecture is different, so the way you live in your own house is different because of the doors, because of the materials. How to live in the countryside is completely different, and usually people has said just pack up and leave and do something like, now I'm gonna start a bed and breakfast, or now I'm gonna start a workshop and I'm finally painting, or I'm finally doing something like that I always wanted to do.
Right. Yeah. No, it's good. It's really good to see that people have a more like an approach to life that is a bit more kind of considerate of their kind of inner feelings, you know, what they really kind of want to be doing, and how they want to spend their days basically. And there's you can really see there's been a lot of like new kind of cafes opening up, and just kind of a lot of like nice places opening in the countryside that wasn't there maybe like 10-15 years ago. Now you can find like super hip like nice
now
cafe.
it's trendy. Now it's Instagram worthy.
yeah but so it's kind of taking kind of, I guess, a part of that, you know, maybe kind of inner city culture. But then when it comes to your lifestyle, I think you just have to change to a different kind of pace of life. And I think a lot of people think though that countryside life is kind of, you know, you'll have a lot of time or whatever. But
no, you're busy all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's I think that's also one of the unique things, I think, of even as a traveler. If you go to the Japanese countryside, you'll see so many kind of like little festivals or kind of little things going on. And there's, you know, in the communities, they still have all this kind of community structure, you know, in Japanese, because of all the kind of natural disasters that they have in Japan. This society is very kind of well structured, and they have these kind of support systems kind of built in their kind of yearly schedule. So whether if you're traveling and you see like a lot of people like cleaning the streets, like, that's just that community that meets up like maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and you have to kind of you know,
and the rural communities,
and
the countryside communities, I feel like they're very closely knit. And you have, of course, the upside and downside. The downside might be that you have no privacy and your life is out of your control. It's like you just deal with it and accept it. And the upside is that you do have a support system. Like you're not in trouble alone. Everyone is always around you or near you, or you have to, or they check up with you, and you have to be present to do all this stuff. And it really is like you're less alone.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's totally true. Like, I think people are a lot more lonely in the big city than they are in the countryside. You kind of have to interact. When the coronavirus came in, and I had to work at home, I had 2-week holiday, and during Golden Week, and just, you know, working in the garden, and finally, like, you know, doing all the things that I put off for a long time. And just like people just walk in the garden, and, you know, chatting and starting to talk. And, you know, one guy will bring like onions, and the other will bring potatoes, and, you know, like, I'll give them my tomatoes that I grow. And, you know, like, it's just kind of, it's just kind of a nice feeling of community, you know, just a little chit chat here and there, and just like checking up on each other. And that's part of the countryside life that I personally enjoy. You do have to give up a bit of your privacy maybe, and it's rewarding. It's not always fun, but in the end, I think it's rewarding.
That's why I usually, I know that for foreign visitors, and especially most people only visit Japan 1 or maybe twice in their life. It's a big trip coming from Europe. It's a big investment too. And sometimes people don't have that much holiday time, that much free time. So they maybe do it in 2 weeks, or if they're really lucky in their jobs, in their contract terms, maybe they can take 3 weeks off in just one go. And so it's a trip in which people have certain expectations, and they want to sort of check the Tokyo, Kyoto, Nara, those things. Like they want to check that out of their lists. They want to visit those places.
Yeah.
I understand that. So I realize that I have to meet the people's expectations in terms of that. But I also want to like lean them towards going to mostly Kyushu, but other rural parts of Japan, in order to have a direct contact with that lifestyle, because it's not just visiting, it's a lifestyle. So if they can spend some time in a residency or a small bed and breakfast, or doing some activity with the local community, or going to a festival, because one of the great things in Japan is that you have festivals every year, very, very frequent. And I guess that mostly because they are countryside and they don't have that much people going around. Usually they accept even foreigners in the festivals. Sometimes they even accept them, holding the omikuji or something like that. So in terms of, I wouldn't see that happening in Kyoto, for instance. Definitely not. But if it's like in the middle of Kyushu or in Hitoyoshi, that happens. It's like, oh, you're here. Do you want to hold this? Like our God? And it's fine, because they're kind of happy that they're being visited. They're being chosen for that foreigner to visit and to see them. So I feel like those kinds of experiences are more, they transform the person. It's like, you're not just traveling, you're changing. And you're in touch with the side of Japan that probably they wouldn't have guessed before being there. And I usually like to recommend them if they are adventurous enough. So about your own opinion, what do you think are the more adventurous things, but also rewarding things that people can do if they go out of the route, out of the box? What they could do?
I think definitely visiting festivals is definitely up there. And then I would specifically recommend very small local festivals, not the big ones where you have just throngs of people and you're just kind of like trying to like look out above the crowd and spot some of the action. But I mean like really like small, like local festivals where it's just the locals who come there. And then because it's kind of part of like like daily life, and a lot of the culture is kind of concentrate. It's kind of how do you say, like kind of like a concentration of all these like little cultural aspects that you can kind of observe and share with the people. So that's definitely that's definitely one of the things I would recommend. Other one is maybe hiking. I really think that Japan has great hiking, which is not really discovered yet by foreign tourists. They have great hiking tours, and the people that you meet on the hiking trails are super nice. And it's actually a really nice way of like meeting people. And people always say konnichiwa when you pass each other, even if you stop and
share snacks.
And if you can, like if you bring a tent to like one of the the campsites, there's always people like striking up a conversation, and it's a really nice way to kind of have a bit more time to kind of actually talk to people. And I had one of the more interesting conversations, I would say, out on the mountain, because people are kind of away from their daily life. It's kind of a natural space for people to meet. So maybe it's a bit more easy, maybe to be also a bit more reflective. I think it's so not hiking, not just for nature, but actually also to kind of meet the people. Yeah. And another thing is that's maybe a bit hard, but a lot of the cities or villages in Japan, they will offer like kind of what they call taikengata, is experience-based tourism things. And it's kind of hard sometimes to like, where do you apply? Where can you, but if you're a bit kind of adventurous, and just go to the tourism association and ask for this kind of
I
experience.
like to recommend that too in my programs. Yeah. Like you
And
will paint some pottery, or you bake something in the house of someone, or do a cooking workshop, things like that. More immersive.
Yeah, and they have a lot of these kind of things, and a lot, like almost every place will have some of those. So if you're, but they're not always advertised well, or sometimes it's a bit hard to like know where to apply, or but yeah, it's worth, I think, making that extra effort and say, oh, you know, if there's something that you think is interesting, then yeah, if you come during the rice planting season, I'm sure there's cities that offer this kind of experience to go planting rice, or harvesting rice, or yeah, so it's definitely worth thinking about, you know, like what would be nice, to what kind of part of Japanese culture you want to see, and then it's probably there. It's, you can probably actually experience it, but you just need to go take one extra step and maybe research a bit more, but it's definitely worth the effort.
I think it's even more present in Japan than it is in Europe, because I guess there are not that much opportunities in Europe if you are a foreign visitor to do those sort of things as they are in Japan. That's something that I've noticed. And it would actually help, like in the city centers of old towns, you always have that problem that the historical town, the old town, it's overpricey. Young people can't live there anymore. Old businesses are turning into souvenir shops. And if you have that sort of things there, probably you will be able to support a more sustainable development of those small city centers. So that's something that I feel it's lacking still, kind of developing that way, but not enough yet. And that's something that I feel also keeps people apart from the countryside in European countries. It's like they do like the city route. They go to Amsterdam, they go to London, to Paris, to, you know, the city route, and it's like the countryside doesn't exist. And it's the opposite. Countryside in Europe was the most developed countryside in the world until the 18th century. So it's like the birth of civilization. That's where you find everything. But in Japan, I felt like, because they had so many tourism, and because they were come with popularity in more recent years, they had to diversify their experiences and kind of channel people outwards, and not just to the very same cities everywhere. Of course, now it's the opposite. Now there's no tourism at all. And as you said, we're kind of in the limbo. We don't know what we're going to do. But I feel like we can change for the better. And I feel like a more thought out sort of travel, it's needed. It has always been needed. Like, people should think about what they're doing with their money and their time.
Yeah. I think it's a good time to actually think of like why you want to travel. And I think a lot of people, like you said, if you just want to, you know, take that picture of, you know, like this famous temple or this and that, then that's absolutely fine. But maybe you can start a bit closer to home to kind of, you know, do this thing. Maybe you don't need to fly all the way across the world to, you know, sit at the beach or just that, you know. But I think if you do make the effort to come all the way to Japan, it has so much to offer, and the culture is so different to Europe. But it has the same kind of quality of life. So I think the the basis are very kind of equal, then but then the culture is very different. So you have a nice kind of setup to explore a bit more of the cultural differences. What I mean with the base is the same, is that because the economies are kind of developed on a similar level, you don't get a difference in power balance between like a wealthy person, or if you go to a more less developed country.
Yes, it's not like visiting India.
Yeah, then people will often kind of maybe also maybe they will think of the money you can spend, maybe, or like, so there's a difference in like kind of like a power power balance is a bit off maybe, but you don't really have that in Japan, I feel. So it's a great place for people to come and still feel comfortable and kind of talk to people on a kind of honest, on a similar level. Kind of, you can
there's a situation that really sums up what you're saying. That it's, if you visit to a lot of places in Southeast Asia and Asia in general, usually you have services and products and tours and people selling things, and you feel like they want your investment as a tourist. They want their money as a tourist, and it's like you're there in order to spend. And they provide things that are funny and beautiful and tasty and worthy for you to spend your money. And when you're in Japan, what people do is to ask you why you're here. Why did you come here? What are you doing? So, and that's something that happens all the time in Japan. In the countryside it happens more, because like, okay, you're the white guy or you're the white lady, why you're here? Why did you choose to come here? But people ask you because they are honestly curious, they want to know, and also because they feel like they need an explanation. So that's that equality that you mentioned. They need an explanation why you're there. And then when you give them some answer, like for instance, in my research period in Japan, it was like, oh, I'm researching about the presence of the cultural traits of the Europeans in southern Japan. And people immediately switch on that mentality of helping you out. It's like, oh, I know why she's here, and now I'm gonna help her. And they take you to places and they introduce you to other people. So, and that's something that it never happens anywhere else. It's very special of Japan, that they feel like they can really relate to you on a level of the same level. It's like, oh, you're here because of that, so now I'm gonna help you.
Exactly. So it's, even though you have all these like cultural differences and maybe different way of thinking or a different approach to things, the human connection is very, I think, easy to make in Japan. So I think that's, if you're gonna travel all the way to Japan, I would say
take advantage of
that. Go and try and go in a bit deeper and travel beyond the usual tourist spots. Of course, that's also okay, like you said. That I don't have a problem with that. But if you're gonna go there, I would really say then you might as well use that trip and kind of create more memories.
For sure.
So
what are your plans now? What you'll do next?
You mean like in the coming months or coming years? Or
maybe it's better to think about the full year at the end of this year.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for my work, for our residency, we kind of just have to see how it unfolds. Really, there's only so much that we can control. So,
Do you
yeah, I think.
still plan to open a sort of guest house in that beautiful place in Hirado
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
New
That's
Year?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. On the long term, that's definitely the plan. Yeah. Oh, can you hear the music on the background?
No, maybe I
Oh,
put it louder, but I don't think
uh,
so. No.
it's a 6 o'clock tune that you were
Yeah.
talking about earlier.
I
Yeah.
love those sort of, most people don't know what it's about. So small towns in Japan have a specific music and it's different from each town from town. And they usually play at 6 o'clock and it's the go home music. It's, it's,
Yes. Yeah.
it's mellow and it sort of feels like anime and it really becomes something that we love.
Yeah. It's a shame you can't hear it. It's playing right now. And then they have the announcement of the girl. Here, it's a girl. But is she coming? Maybe in a few minutes. They always say like, oh, it's time to go home, and then they ask like, oh, please, uh look after us when we're on our way back to our houses. It's kind of nice, like, yeah, like, okay.
Yeah, I
Oh
love
yeah,
that.
very nice.
I love the small children going to school at 8 in the morning, and sometimes they have people on the street helping them cross the road or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
But I love the fact that they go to school, but they're kind of half asleep, so they get distracted really easily. And they're walking, and then they see something, or they start playing with a ball, and then they remember, oh, I was going to school, and they start walking again.
yeah.
I find that lovely, and they probably take 2 hours walking to the school.
Yeah, they leave really early.
They leave really early because
Yeah,
people assume, and they assume as well, as they will walk and get distracted and walk again, and that's fine. And they will eventually get there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's nice that people still like walk to school on their own. Like, not that all the parents are driving their kids to school, but they just walk. I like that. It's nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always tried to, when I had to walk towards some place, I always tried to go really early or after that time,
Mm.
because I knew that if the kids saw me, they will try, oh, this nice foreign lady, what she's doing
Yeah.
here, and they will be
Yeah.
friendly and they will talk and they want to ask me stuff. So they will get late to school because of me. So I always tried to go out really early or after that hour, because that happened a couple of times, and I felt kind of guilty. It's like, you have to go. And they were completely absorbed into talking.
Yeah. That's definitely something I think you won't have in, at least not in Holland. Yeah.
No,
The
not
little,
here in
the
Portugal
little
either. No,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
not at all.
yeah. But
So I
to
will
come back
then
to your
you.
question,
Yeah.
for my bed and breakfast is definitely the plan is to keep going with the renovations. So in a few years, I'll probably have to stop working and just full-time focus on renovating the house. So I've done the whole roof. So now it's a matter of doing the last few things on the outside of the house, and then move on to the inside and putting in toilets, this kind of thing.
You'll do a
Yeah,
mix of traditional and modern. Traditional in the sleeping room, modern in bathrooms and kitchens and stuff.
right. Yeah. I think that the laws in Japan are quite strict when it comes to safety regulations, which is good, I guess, for travelers. And but uh, it makes it a bit more challenging to start up a place in an old house, because you of course the house is like this, it's all made of wood and paper and straw, so everything can burn. So it's a bit harder to pass all these like safety laws. But yeah, I'm working on the plans now, and then I have to submit them, and so hopefully in maybe in 1 year or 2 years, I'll have to see. Also depends on what's going to happen with the residency here. But then I'll start full time focusing on that.
I hope
yeah.
it goes well.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I'm gonna visit you again.
Yeah, you should. Yeah. The plan is to for it to be kind of like a small kind of like old style ryokan. So it's private rooms, but with shared facilities, such as toilet and showers, and then it's hopefully there'll be a cafe, restaurant space where people can eat, but they don't have to. So that's up to the customers.
The location is really good for that because it's right in front of the road, so you can open the cafe to the general customers.
Yeah, and I have the sea on the back side of the house, so if you want to sit outside and look at the sea, you can do it at the back. Yeah. So that's the plan, and also hopefully be able to offer some tours I was talking about before, where people can go and do like rice planting or harvesting or kayaking, or like these kind of go maybe hiking with a local guide or this kind of thing. So that's also the plan, to set that up. Yeah.
I think 2020 is a very odd year. It's a very strange year, but I think 2021 will be a pretty good year because everyone will be thirsty of new experiences and getting out in the world and exploring, and hopefully everything will be more normal and regular and safe, and we'll be able to do that. I hope so.
Yeah, I think it kind of reminded us what we value in life and what we should appreciate as well. So in that sense, I think it will be nice to be able to travel again, and also really appreciate
plan things out before going, and really know what they're doing there, what they want their experience to be. Because I noticed that, like, working in this area, of course I've met all sorts of people and some people are more like into mass tourism, and some people are very extreme about not taking a plane anywhere because you're polluting everything. And I've also learned and grow into thinking that a middle term is possible. A middle term is necessary. Like, for instance, in my own life, I'm also part of an association that runs a piece of natural forest here in Portugal. So we got together, we bought the land. So the land belongs to the association. And because we bought the land, we can keep that forest. Like, we can plant more trees, we can take out the trees that are like a plague, and we can manage the natural forest, and we can invest in that because I travel, because I feel like I have to do something to balance the fact that I take a plane. So I take a plane, I know I produce 4 tons of carbon monoxide, but I also know that if I take care of a forest, I kind of clean the environment of what I'm producing. So it's like taking the responsibility of why do you do that, and how can you pay off what you do.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And maybe I think, like, even if people travel less, then you also want to get more out of your experience. Like, you want more quality out of like what you get. So
it will be possible to travel less but more significantly, and to also balance what you produce in terms of pollution with what you invest in terms of nature. So I feel like if you do the math, sort of, if you do the math of your experience, you can create a more reasonable lifestyle, I guess.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, and you can also contribute to places while you're traveling.
Sure.
You can also help with conservation efforts in the place you're traveling. Also in Japan, if you're coming here, and also like going for that extra cultural experience, I think, and have more also communication with the local communities and local people is also kind of an investment. Yeah, kind of opening up barriers and opening up people's worlds. And I have seen, you know, how important actually exchanges with foreign people are for like young children and you know, yeah, and just, you know, simple conversation can actually be really meaningful to them as well. So that's also, I think, an investment
they have an amazing expression that is something like that. Oh, foreigners are not scary after all.
Right, yeah.
And when they say that, I feel like, oh, I just by being here, I kind of changed their minds, because they actually thought that foreigners were scary. Right. And when they say they're not scared anymore, I feel like, oh, this was a good change of pace in that children's life.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think traveling is definitely a good way to break down those barriers and for you as a traveler, but also for the kind of the hosting community. And yeah, I think you can also, you as a traveler, you can contribute in so many ways, you know, also for the environment, but also on a social aspect as that. So maybe if we're a little bit more conscious about those things, then we can actually get a lot out of and contribute a lot through travel. So
yeah, I also believe in that, in a more responsible travel, in a more responsible experience when you travel.
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah, so that, yeah, and if you just want to go to the beach, that's also no problem. But maybe you don't have to fly all the way across the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking with me. Please send me the links so I can expand the information about what's available for people to do, and they start dreaming about it. Now it's the period for us to dream about the future. And not to make it real right now, but we can always plan and dream and have hope and sort of nurture our hopeful side instead of our desperation side. Everyone is very despaired and critical these days, so I feel like they need to set their minds into something positive.
For sure. Yeah. I totally agree.
Thank you. And because the music ran already, so you have to relax and finish your day.
Yeah, I have medical checkup tomorrow, so
yeah,
I have to eat soon, and then I can't eat after 7 o'clock. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Remco. See you soon, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. Oh, by the way, my name is with a C, not with a K.
Oh yeah. I wrote wrong in the Zoom meeting, but I checked on your Facebook.
Yeah, no problem. Everyone always, even they make the mistake, they often write it with a K, but yeah.
With the C.
Yeah, with the company.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Yeah, nice talking to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.